Cup. Hello everyone. This is me again, Teacher Melvin. Today is our math time. This morning, we are going to learn about adding and subtracting fraction. I know that you are good in mathematics. So, let's try your ability. I will show you a video that will explain how to subtract and add fractions. So, listen carefully.
Welcome to Math with Mr. J. In this video, we're going to be learning how to add and subtract fractions. And as you can see, there are 4 problems on your screen: 2 addition and 2 subtraction. And at the top of your screen in white, we have the steps we're going to take in order to solve these problems. So let's jump right in to number 1. So for number 1, we have 2/5 plus 1/3. And the first thing you want to check for when you have an adding or subtracting fractions problem is to see if your denominators or bottom numbers are the same. And for this, obviously, we have a 5 and a 3. So we are not ready to add those fractions yet. So our first step, we need to find a common denominator. And the way you do that, we need to find the least common multiple between 5 and 3. So I'm going to come over to the side here, list my multiples for 5 and 3, and see when they first meet. Now when you get good at these problems and you have a little more experience, you'll be able to figure out the least common multiple in your head, and for more complicated problems you might need to write out the multiples list. But for now we're going to do it for all 4 of these. So let's write out the multiples of 5, and that's just counting up by 5, all the numbers that 5 will multiply into. So 5 times 1 is 5, 10, 15, and 20. Now that list will go on forever, so my suggestion would be to write out 3 or 4 at a time, and if you don't get a match, then you can extend your lists. So 3, we'll go 3, 6, 9, 12. Now we don't have a match for our multiples yet, so I'm going to extend the 3's. And my next one, I'll get a 15, and we can see that 15 is our least common multiple here. The multiple that 3 and 5 share, that is the smallest in value. So we're going to use 15 for our denominator. So our next step, we need to rename both of these fractions with a denominator of 15. So I'm going to write 15 plus 15 here. Now we cannot just drop our top number or numerator down because that fraction will not be equivalent. 2/5 is not the same as 2/15. So we're going to have to rename these with that 15. So I'm going to come to the side over here, and we need to find the equivalent fraction for 2/5. Now you set it up like this, and we have to see what we do to the bottom number, that 5, to get it to equal 15. And we take that 5 times 3, and it equals 15. So we need to do the same exact thing to the top, and we will get an equivalent fraction. So 2 times 3 is 6. So 2/5, its equivalent fraction with the denominator of 15 is 6/15. Now we need to do 1/3. So 1/3 equals how many 15ths? Well, 3 times 5 is 15, so we need to do that same thing to the top. 1 times 5 is 5. So this is going to be 5/15. So now we found our common denominator here. We renamed with that common denominator. Now we're ready to add or subtract. And this problem's addition, so 6 plus 5 is 11, and then we keep our denominator the same. We do not do 15 plus 15. We keep it as is, 15. And lastly, we check to see if our fraction can be simplified or broken down. Now, are there any numbers that can divide out of both 11 and 15 to break this fraction down? No, the only one is only common factor between 11 and 15 is 1. So this fraction is simplified. We are done. 11/15 would be your answer to number 1. Now that seems like a lot of work and a lot of steps there to get down, and just for a simple addition problem. But with practice and more experience, these go a lot quicker. So let's go to number 2. We have 1/2 plus 2/8. So obviously our denominators are not the same, so we're going to need to find the common denominator. So we'll make our list for 2 and 8, our multiples lists. So 2, 4, 6, 8. Now let's make our list for 8. Well, we start with 8, and we should see a match. So our least common multiple is 8. So now we need to rename our fractions. So I'm not going to go to the side for this one. I'm just going to do it right below our original problem. So I know this 2, I need to multiply by 4 to get a denominator of 8, right? 2 times 4. So I need to do the same thing to the top. 1 times 4 is 4. And as you can see here, we have an equivalent fraction. 4/8 is the same thing as 1/2. We're not changing the value when we rename. We're just giving it a different name and a different denominator, so we have a common denominator and we're able to add or subtract. Now 2/8 already has a denominator of 8, so we don't need to change that at all. We are just going to bring the 2 down. It already has a denominator of 8. So we found a common denominator, we renamed, now we need to add or subtract. So 4 plus 2 is 6, and we keep our denominator as 8. Now we need to simplify. Are there any numbers that can divide out of 6 and 8, any common factors, to break this problem down? Yes, they're both even and can be divided by 2. So we get 6 divided by 2 is 3, 8 divided by 2 is 4. Now the only common factor between that 3 and 4 is 1. That's the only thing we can divide both of those by. So we are done. The answer to number 2 is 3/4. So let's go to number 3. We have a subtraction problem. 7/8 minus 1/3 here for number 3. So we obviously don't have a common denominator, so our first step is going to be to find one. So let's list our multiples for 8 and 3. So 8, 16, 24, 32. Now let's list our multiples of 3. 3, 6, 9, 12. Now we don't have a match yet, so we need to continue to extend. 15, 18, and I'm choosing to extend the 3's because at the 8 we're already to 32. So we're going to extend our smaller list here. 21, 24. And we have a hit here with a common denominator of 24. So now we need to rename. So 8 times 3 is 24, and 7 times 3 is 21. 3 times 8 gives us the denominator of 24, so 1 times 8 is 8. 21 minus 8 equals 13, and keep our denominator the same. The only common factor between 13 and 24 is 1. We cannot simplify or break that fraction down anymore. So our answer is 13/24. So subtraction is the same exact steps as addition. We just subtract instead of add. So number 4, we have a denominator of 6 and 9. So we need to make our multiples list. 6, 12, 18, 24. 9, 18, and we have a match. So our common denominator is going to be 18. So 6 times 3 is 18. 5 times 3 is 15. 9 times 2 is 18. So we need to do the same exact thing to the top so we have an equivalent fraction. 2 times 2 is 4. So we get to 15/18 minus 4/18. And that gets us to 15 minus 4 is 11. Keep our common denominator of 18 the same, and we get to 11/18. Now 11/18 does not have any common factors besides 1. We can't break that fraction down any further, so this is our final answer. So there you have it. There's adding and subtracting fractions. Hopefully that helped out.
Did you understand the video? Okay, so let's have a recap. So how to add and subtract fraction? First, you need to find the common denominator of the fractions. And then you need to rename the fraction. And the last one is simplifying the fraction. Again, first we need to find the common denominator. The next, we need to rename the fraction. And then the last one is simplify the fraction. I hope you like the video, guys. And I'm also hoping that you get some new learning from it. So, to test your knowledge, answer the worksheets that I will give at the end of this video. Thank you for listening, student. Remember, stay safe and stay home. See you again. Kup kun kap.